On this week's episode of the Steam Deck podcast, we're talking about Nvidia's new GeForce Now app, and is Lenovo Leigon Go S the new handheld to buy? Hello, you're tuned into this week's episode of the Steam Deck podcast, Flip Screen Games weekly podcast, all about Valve's portable PC powerhouse, the Steam Deck. I'm your host, Jim Radford, joined, as always, by my very good friend and co-host, Mr. Max Wright.
Choo choo.
You're back on the train.
I am back. I'm on the train. Yeah, I thought I'd mix up a bit. Steam train. Might see if I can cut off one every week. But I am back. It's lovely to be back. Always fun to talk about the Steam Deck.
We should have like Steamboat Willie.
Now
he's public domain. We can have him in here.
I mean, that's one hell of a way to advertise your podcast, right? It's just be a Disney affiliated podcast in some way.
It's still a Disney property. It's
not stealing. It's not stealing.
Well, Max, we've got a couple of things to talk about this week. The first being Nvidia's GeForce Now client. So they teased this a while ago. I think it was back in January at CES. That they were going to bring a native Steam Deck client to Steam, and you could go to their website, install it. We've both done that, so we want to share our experiences. It is in beta, so obviously all of this is subject to change. And disclosure on my part, this was probably the third or fourth time I've tried GeForce Now. It's changed a fair bit since I last tried it, and I've only ever tried it in a web browser. So this was the first time I've tried the kind of like a native experience.
Mm-hmm. And I'm going to be real, didn't feel that all that native, really, did it?
No, it does not feel all that native. I have a sneaky suspicion that it's not really native and that it's actually just a web browser shell.
Yeah, it really feels in every step of the way, feels like that. Let's start from the very beginning, right? Installation. Now, I understand that it's beta and it's not the full thing. But I don't think the average person who just has their Steam Deck to play games right now would, I guess, have the patience or you need to be told what to do here or have done something like this before, because you go on, you download a bin file. At least is the way I did it. Tried to run it and it said it's not executable. Cool. Went into, and I've done this before, where you go in and you say, this is executable, or allow this to be executed. Run it again.
I didn't have that experience. I downloaded it, I double clicked it, and it came up with a big scary warning. Are you sure you want to run this? And I clicked OK, and it did it. But it could be because I'd run bin files before, so that SteamOS knew what the bin file was.
Well, I must have done before. There are things that because I remember installing things this way. That's how I was able to get to my third step of run it in console, and then it just did it straight away. And it's the only. Yeah, I just nothing would work. I tried putting it. I know there are some things that only work on my desktop, so I tried it on there. And I'm not that good at Linux. You know, I'm much more of a Windows guy, as much as I wish I wasn't. I know, I'm sorry, but that's only because it's what I use at work. So that's it. But I did my best, and I finally got it to work. But then I ended up sitting there for 15 minutes while it just said installing, and then I cancelled it because I thought it must have buggered up somehow.
You told me it was going to do that, and I was really glad you did, because I just went into the dishwasher, and by the time I came back, it was like, it's done.
Yeah, so I backed off, and I did it again, and I just left it, and I left it, and I left it, and I left it, and then it worked. But yeah, I think that I hope that there is going to be a better situation. It's a shame that it has to be done through desktop mode. It's not going to be on Steam.
I thought it was going to be an app on Steam that you downloaded it from Steam, or if not that, at the very least, like an app in the Dolphin store that you could install and add in that way. Because an app in the Dolphin store, all you have to do is right click and click add to Steam, and it's then in Steam, and I don't really have to do anything else. That's what you do with Greenlight.
Yeah.
And that's what you do with Moonlight. That's what you do with pretty much anything. Like, if you want to install Dolphin manually from the store, you can do that. Whereas GeForce Now, it did seamlessly add it to.
I was very impressed with that.
And it added the logo, and it's there as a non-Steam game in gaming mode. And it does say to you, you can now go back to gaming mode and you can open it up. So it did work to some extent, but it is a bit rough. I hope they do bring it to Steam at some point. But I don't know. Maybe it's something Valve doesn't want to allow.
Yeah, I can see why. But I guess Greenlight's on there. Not Greenlight, sorry, XB Play is on there, and that's a similar sort of thing. It's streaming software. I feel like after that, the actual sign-in process I thought was quite seamless. In terms of I didn't have to in game mode bring up the thing, type
But
in
that
my
made me feel
long.
it wasn't native because I was like, oh, so now I can't sign in the app. I have to have a secondary device. So I had to
Yeah,
have my phone there. I had to go to the gfn.link/connect, and you put the code in, and then you sign into your Nvidia account, and then you're in. But
yeah.
it
I
was
did
really
feel.
weird for me. Like I couldn't even click anything. I had to use the touchscreen because
Yeah,
by
same.
default, like I was fully expecting it to be controller controls. Like I can move around the whole UI with controller, and it's not that at all. It very much is. There's a mouse cursor, and for the most part, you're probably going to be using the mouse.
I feel like when I was logged in and I was in to go, I was able to move through using not the stick, maybe, but definitely the D-pad. I was able to get through to
Yeah, but how do
the
you
game
get
I
to
wanted
like
to
the
play.
top menu in the top left? Like you have to go up there with the mouse
Mm.
to press. Like it's a lot easier to navigate with your finger or with a mouse, and it's
Mhm.
clear that they've not designed the interface. It's not like the Steam interface where you press the right bumpers and you can tab through everything. It's very much a clumsy interface that I'm guessing is the exact same interface that they use on their desktop app. That this essentially is that, or the same
Yeah.
for their browser.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised either. And that's not the end of the clumsiness as far as
No,
I'm
because
concerned.
if it's your first time, the clumsiness continues, and this
Yeah.
wasn't even my first time. But to see your games, you have to connect your Steam library or your Epic Games library,
Hmm.
or I think it supports like other ones
Oh, I
like
didn't realize you could connect Epic. I only have my Steam games on there. Right, okay.
no, like because you can play Fortnite through it, which is a big draw for people because obviously Fortnite is one of those games that you can't play natively on the Steam Deck, and it's a way that you can play it on your deck if you want to. You can play it through GeForce Now. But that again involved me getting my phone out, going to another website, putting another code in, and that didn't work for me a couple of times. I had to do that. Like I had to end up scanning the QR code to get it to work,
Okay.
and then you have to go through the sign-in process on Steam.
Yeah, I don't. I really like the QR code system on Steam. Very, very quick, very handy. Always works for me.
Yeah, but this was before I even got to that. It was the QR code on the Steam Deck,
Oh,
the
okay.
Nvidia one, like showing
Yeah,
the
yeah,
back.
yeah.
Fine, logged in, my game showed up. Certainly wasn't all of them. I don't know what your experience there was.
Yeah. Yeah, I really thought I was expecting to just see like a huge block of all my games, and I could pick and choose from all my favorites and all my classics. And there were 5 games that I could choose from. Out of what would we say I had in that last episode?
It was like
Like 7,
300, wasn't it?
more than that. I've got like 700 games in total, something stupid like that. 600 games. I don't know. And yeah, for only 5 of them to be available. Granted, I am only a free user. I didn't want to pay.
No, but
Um,
I'm only a free user too. But it showed me that Blueprints was available. However, it was locked behind premium, so I couldn't play that one.
hmm. Yeah, I same for I'd like Monster Hunter was on there. Final Fantasy 16 were on there, but I couldn't actually play them. But when it said my library, and that is these are the games that you can play right now, it was just like The Surge, The Witcher 3. Granted, it's quite a big game. Cuphead, Hellblade, and
It's weird that it's not in any kind of order as well. Like it wasn't in all alphabetical order. It wasn't order of this is the one you've played most, or this is the newest game that's recently
yeah.
come in your library. It was very much all over the place. It was very higgledy-piggledy. I ended up playing Forza Horizon 4, I think was the one I booted up, because it was the first game that looked like it would be semi-taxing. And then that gets you to another weird experience where it booted up essentially what looked like yet another Steam Deck. It was another big
Mm-hmm.
picture mode. And I had to go through the motions of setting up the language, putting
Yeah.
my time in there, and then I'm booted into just another instance of Steam in big picture mode with only one game installed.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And that was like I was nervous doing it, and I gather a lot of people might be where you scan the QR code to sign into Steam, and then it says, do you want to remember your password? And I was like, well, I don't know. I don't know if I do want that to remember my password because I don't know, like,
Where is
why is
this
it asking me to
machine?
sign
Yeah.
into Steam again? Where is the machine? It says it's in London, but like, I don't know about this. So I
Oh, mine
did
was
it
in
and said,
Edinburgh.
oh, was it?
Yeah.
I guess is that maybe where between us somewhere there's a line where it points you up or down.
Means I'm in the north.
Yeah, I said don't remember my password, and that did screw me up a little bit. But yeah, like you say, you have to go through the process of setting up basically a Steam Deck or setting up SteamOS almost for the first time, which was just weird, and it just doesn't seem very user friendly at all.
No, really strange. I don't know why it can't automatically do that for you. I've already logged into Steam. I've already provided you those details. You know what language I'm looking at and what I'm coming from. Presumably, you can capture that information from my machine anyway.
Yeah.
Why do you need the time? Don't know if that's relevant.
Yeah. Why is it always out? Why does it always think I'm in like Los Angeles or something?
Yeah, very weird. Don't know why. But then when I managed to finally boot up Forza, it didn't even work anyway because it was like you need to sign into Xbox, and I couldn't sign in. It brought up another browser window essentially, like it would bring up a window in over the top that's like the Xbox login thing, and there's a button to press. And I even changed like the Steam input config so that my mouse cursor I can press the right trackpad to be a mouse click. That didn't do it. Was pressing A. I was touching the screen all throughout that process. Every time it would just make the thing disappear and then say you can't skip this. You need to sign in, and so I couldn't play Forza. It was completely and I presume any game that requires me to log into Xbox and maybe even PlayStation, I can't play. I don't know if that's the case for everything or if it was just a weird thing with Forza, but it was one of the games that was shown to me that was playable. So I don't know why it didn't work.
And you said you just have to go through like a cascade of Inception style browsers and browsers and browsers to get to where you need to be. Yeah, I luckily didn't have that experience and was able to. I chose the Surge because I was like, out of all the games, one, I have a save file on there, so I know I can just go straight in. And two, I thought it might be the game that of them all that requires the best like input.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I would need quick inputs. It's I'd need to be sort of a Souls-like game for those who don't know. And when I actually got into it, I thought, all right, I'll check the settings because it remembered my, and fair play to it, it remembered it had my, Steam Cloud on there because you log into Steam. So it remembered my settings, it remembered everything, but it remembered my settings from when I played it, 2 computers ago, and I was playing it on a computer, hooked up to a 1080p TV. I was like, cool. So I had it all set to like medium settings or whatever. I was like, let me whack these settings all up to maximum. I'm ready to see what I can get out of this, see if I can, get it to look the best it can, but also see if I can make it slow down or whatever. So I did that, and it said this setting requires your game to be restarted. And I thought, yeah, cool. So I exited the game thinking it was going to take me back to that instance of Steam Big Picture, and it just quit me out the game and quit me out of GeForce Now. And I was like, oh, for God's sake. So when I went to sign back in, I had to rejoin the queue that I just waited for. Also, did you have adverts in your queue? I know we're free.
Yes, I did have adverts in the queue.
Were they buffering?
No, they did buffer for me, but they were really annoying. I just turned the volume down.
Yeah, I was really worried when because on YouTube sometimes even if your videos are crap, the adverts are always crystal clear because they're like let's not waste any bandwidth on that. But the adverts were buffering a lot or stuttering, and I was like, this is not going to be a good experience. But fair play to it. When I actually got the game booted in a second time after having to sign into Steam again because I said don't remember my password, the game ran pretty well. It looked soft at times because it's not native necessarily.
See, I didn't have that. I ended up playing Hitman, and I thought it looked over sharp.
Oh, really?
I thought there was like a sharpening filter. Now it could be that I have the sharpening filter set in my quick access menu. I'll have to check that because I do that for when I stream from Xbox because it does make it look a little crispier, whereas it is usually softer. So maybe that's a way to do it. But I found it a little overly sharp.
So I did super sampling. I turned it up to like 150%, and I did think there maybe was some like some of the hair looked a bit odd, but like in terms of when I was just running around in an area, there were things did sort of like blend together almost, or like it wasn't. It was just soft, I guess. It had that look of something with DLSS upscaling, even though it wasn't that. That's just what I was sort of getting from it.
Bit ghosting kind of thing.
Not even ghosting necessarily, just like a not crisp, clean models and I guess also that could also be down to another point you brought up, which is a lack of HDR. So there wasn't that
Yeah, that was really
massive
strange.
contrast.
Like because I'm pretty sure when they announced it, they said HDR support was one of the big things that they were going to bring. And I went on to Hitman because it supports HDR on GeForce Now, and it was locked. It said, in order to activate HDR10, you need to connect to a compatible display.
Yeah, it did say that, but it also said it was part of premium as well. When I
Oh,
tried
no, it
to
didn't say it was
I
part of
looked at.
premium for me.
Oh, okay. So when I went on Monster Hunter Wild, sorry, it said RTX premium or whatever, and then underneath that was HDR 10 plus, and I assumed maybe that meant it was also part of premium. But you're right, it might not be.
We could be wrong on that. Like if you have played it with premium and you have premium, let us know in the comments because we could well be wrong. I did think some of the games locked behind premium was strange. Like, why could I not play Blueprints? It's such a weird choice just to lock small games like that. Maybe it's
And
because they're so
also,
popular.
if you're playing premium, if you're paying for premium, do you need to also buy the game, or
Yes.
do you get? Okay, so is there like a version of it that's like Game Pass where you can pay extra and have access to the games, or is it purely? Is it purely like you have to own the game and pay extra for it? Because it just seems like
You have to own the game and pay for it.
Okay.
So there are 3 plans. There's free, which is what we played. It's a basic rig, 4 CPUs. Queue obviously times are decent. They're pretty lengthy. Some of the queue times. I mean, most I had to wait was 18, and I waited for like 2 minutes. It wasn't that.
Yeah, I was 15 most. Yeah.
And then they've got ads in it. You can stream up to 60 FPS, up to 1080p for up to an hour at a time. Then the performance mode unlocks RTX. Doesn't say what RTX it is. The 4080 comes in ultimate, so it's not that. You get 100 hours of playtime per month with 15 hours that you can carry over, up to 6 hours a session, 1440p, up to 60 FPS, and then a bunch of other stuff. Ultimate goes up to 240, up to 4K. Ultimate, you probably don't need, I would say. However,
No.
you don't get DLSS until you go up to Ultimate, and you don't get
Oh,
NVIDIA
okay.
Reflex until you go up to Ultimate.
Jeez. Okay. So as I've said on the show before, I basically do this at home where I stream, use my PC as the PC, and I stream Moonlight and Sunshine. And I can see the benefit why you would want to if you don't have a decent PC. You only have your Steam Deck and you want to be playing these beefier games. This is a good experience. But if you have another device in the home that plays these games, I just don't think there's any reason at all to use this service. Maybe just not in the way that it is now, because it seems clunky. It seemed like when I was actually playing the game, I was impressed with the
Me too.
I was impressed with the input lag.
performant. I didn't feel like there was much input lag, and that's without NVIDIA Reflex. Presumably on the Ultimate plan, it gets even better. There's even less kind of less kind of latency, that kind of thing in there. But
yeah.
I don't know. I kind of agree with you. The controller support for me was terrible. The UI seemed laggy. Like it was capped at 30 FPS. It felt like I'd gone from the Switch, normal, I'm browsing around the Switch, and then I go into the eShop, and the eShop's laggy as shit, and you're just like, what is going on? Why am I like walking through honey? And then I go into a game and I can experience that up to 60 FPS. If I unlock it, I can go up to 90 FPS on the Steam Deck.
So I actually saw someone say that it's when it says up to 120, what it actually means is either 60 or 120. There's nothing in the middle, apparently. I don't know how true that is, but that's just something I read
That's
when I was
fine, because can't I cap it then in the quick access menu to 90, and then it will
yeah, that
render
would
out
probably
120, but I'll only see 90.
that would probably work actually. Yeah, I'd imagine that would work. It's just not there for me. And I was thinking about I was like, oh, why don't I plug it into my dock and try and I granted I didn't realize it was a 1080p lock, so I was like, let's see what I can get out of it. Let's see if I can make a game, make it feel like a native experience on my with plugged into an Ethernet cable. But I updated my dock firmware and I just can't get an image out of it anymore. So that's something I've got to deal with when we finish
I've got some
recording.
weird issues going on as well since the latest update. Which, by the way, there are some nice things in the latest update. Everyone should update. Like the battery limit is a great one.
Yeah.
Put that on. I've limited to, I think, 90 is where I'm going to settle at. My phone's limiter is at 95, but it's a bit different to my phone. The latest issue I've got is that I can't connect my Xbox controller anymore. It will
really?
show up and disappear in a massive loop on the Bluetooth settings to the point where I can't connect it. We took it with us to Center Parks and we wanted to play some Jackbox, and I just could not connect the Xbox controller. So I just had to keep getting up to put the next game on, and I'm lifting it out of the dock, and the dock's just dangling because I'm just holding it as the Steam Deck.
These are the problems that the people in Wally had. Are
you saying I look like one of those blob people, Max?
No, absolutely not. No, know what I'm saying. Let's backtrack quickly and talk about something else. Mine. If I plug the dock in, the TV goes, "Yep, I've got the Steam Deck now," and then there's a purple screen, and the sound comes out. And if I press buttons, it goes from purple to black. But I can't do anything else. So I need to work out what's going on there at some point.
I think there's a safe mode button now.
Yeah, there's a safe mode in the settings. So I did that, and it showed something. And then as soon as I set it to,
normal
automatic resolution or 4K resolution or whatever, it crashes or it just doesn't display an image. So that's something for me to work out, which I guess is I'm on the beta channel now for updates.
Maybe go back to stable and see if it.
Maybe I'll go back to stable and see where
I'm at a point where I use the dock for limited purposes. It's mostly a Jackbox machine.
Yeah,
and that's about it, really.
Well, I use it for this exact purpose: is playing my PC games or games from my PC on my TV.
Yeah.
Although my Steam Deck for some reason has stopped recognizing that my TV is HDR randomly, so now I can't even stream in HDR anymore. Which
love that.
Yeah, confused.
I gotta say I wasn't massively impressed with the Nvidia experience.
No.
I think the streaming's great. The interface just isn't there. The fact that the games are kind of locked behind, you've got to buy them anyway. But then even then, if they're not on GeForce Now, you can't play it. You've got to wait for them to bring it. It's like there's so many caveats along the way. Is this the right thing to do? And paying £20 a month for the Ultimate membership for that just is too much for me. I think you're better off going and paying for something like Xbox Game Pass Ultimate and having the stream in that way. Or even if you don't have a PC but you have a PlayStation or an Xbox, use something like Greenlight or just find some way. Chiaki's great for PlayStation.
Chiaki is good. Yeah, I think if you're like, oh, I really want to play this game handheld, but I don't want to buy it because it's too powerful or whatever. Yeah, I think rather than this experience, I would say get the game on Xbox and PC, and then use Chiaki, use Greenlight or XP Play or whatever.
Yeah,
they're just better experiences.
They feel more native. They are more native.
Also, I've really joined the anti-Nvidia train recently, so I'm like, sorry, I'm going to sneeze.
Max had to pause this sneeze.
I've joined the anti-Nvidia train recently, and I this is sort of not helping in that, I guess. Where I can imagine these huge server farms that are, allowing you to play these games are probably a great way for them to actually sell their big AI server GPUs and stuff to big corporations. And I'm glad that we have to pay for the privilege of it. So
yeah, it's too rich for me. But I think it could get there. I really, really hope Valve gets in the mix on some kind of streaming solution at some point, or at least revamp Steam Link, because it's been neglected for so long, and it showed so much promise from the beginning. But people reach for stuff like Moonlight now because it's a much better solution.
I've never had any success with the Steam streaming inside my own house. Have had nothing but good experiences with Moonlight and Sunshine, or not even Sunshine anymore, Apollo. And I'm waiting to replace Moonlight with Artemis whenever they make a Linux version of that. So,
you'll have to let us know about that, Max.
I will do. You know how much I love to talk about it.
Yeah. Well, before we talk about our next topic, here's a quick word from our sponsors.
This episode was made with support from listeners like you on patreon.com/flipscreengames. If you enjoy our podcast, supporting us on Patreon will help us spend more time making content and get you access to Patreon exclusive perks like early access to ad-free versions of all of our podcasts, and exclusive content like the twice monthly After Dark podcast, where Steve and I will share funny personal stories, play games with each other, and more. And my daily Patreon show, The Daily Checkpoint, where every day I'll spend at least 10 minutes answering your questions or sharing my off-the-cuff thoughts on what I'm playing and what's going on in the video games industry. If you like what we do and want to go above and beyond to show your support, head over to patreon.com/flipscreengames today.
And we are back. So, Max, I don't know if you saw this week. I don't know how you didn't see it because everyone saw it. The Lenovo released the Leigon Go S SteamOS edition. So we had the Windows variant of this, I think 4 months ago, back in January. And it was okay. It was an average device. It was, it competed with the likes of the ROG Ally. It was a more tidy version, I would say, of the Lenovo Leigon Go.
Compact, stripped out some of the sort of switchier features and made it.
It's the Switch Lite version of the Switch. It's an all-in-one handheld, and it looked nice. I think it's a handsome-looking device, and it looks comfortable, which is more than I can say about the MSI monstrosity we spoke about last week and the ROG monstrosity we spoke about the week before that.
Which is this the new MSI Claw?
Claw
that's
AA,
got this ridiculous name. Yeah. This I like that this one has like a nice like curvy round bum on it as opposed to like jagged edges of the Lenovo. The Asus.
Less Chad. Now the biggest way you can differentiate this model from the Windows counterpart is this one's black. The Windows one's white.
I much prefer the black colorway to the white. I just don't know what the things with white handhelds. The Steam Deck OLED, the Switch OLED, the newer version of the Steam Deck OLED, the ROG Ally just doesn't do it for me. This is sleeker,
Well, that's good because this is the only version I think we're getting with SteamOS on, at least out of the box. But I would imagine people will be able to flash this on whatever they want. I think the best video I saw about this, and I'm going to direct everyone to, is Dave 2D's video of it. He compared this not only to the Windows version of the Lenovo Leigon Go S, but also to the Steam Deck. And he had both variants of the Lenovo Leigon Go S. There's two versions, if you don't know. There's the one with the Z1 Extreme chip, which is slightly more expensive. And there's the one with the Z2 Go chip, which is a little bit cheaper, but a little less powerful. He compared the experiences, and the video I think had a great name, and I think it sums up what we've been talking about on the show for a very long time, which is Windows was the problem all along. So out of the box, it's a much better experience. You don't have to install Steam to begin with, because I think a lot of people forget that these handheld devices don't come with Steam included because they don't have a license to do that. You have to go straight away, first port call, go and download Steam.
That's because like what you want to do is you want to open this new thing and start playing games. You don't want to start doing computer things with a handheld like this, especially doing computer things with a touchscreen. Yeah, that's a much better. I didn't even realize it didn't come with Steam. That's the first time learning of it. I'm shook.
So yeah, no Steam, and I think on the Lenovo one, you even have to install like whatever their version of Armory Crate or whatever the crap they call that. It doesn't come default installed. You have to install that. It's like a clean, fresh install of Windows, and then you have to install all of that stuff on top. What I think I was surprised by is just how much the performance and battery life is better than the Windows version. Despite it being identical hardware, it's just like it kind of knocks it out of the park. Like Dave in his video showed some stats. He compared like low, medium settings across both the SteamOS version and the Windows version. Exact same handheld, exact same chipset. Cyberpunk on the Windows version got 46 frames per second, which is, reasonable. It's kind of what you expect. I would aim for like 40 frames per second on the deck. On the Lenovo Leigon Go S with SteamOS, it gets 59 frames per second.
That's average, so you probably could turn something down to get it to stick at 60.
Yeah, on the whole, across the board, you're looking at an average of like at least a 10% increase across the board. Helldivers 2 goes from 65 frames per second up to 70. Doom Eternal from 66 to 75. Spider-Man 2 is the only one where it dips. It goes from 64 to 63, but I think that's
You'll
kind of
notice. No, you'll notice that 1
I
FPS.
think it's
man.
kind
You
of
will.
negligible. And you could cap it at 60 and you'd be perfectly happy. The Witcher 3 goes from 66 frames per second to 76 frames per second. And then he also compared some of these same games to the Steam Deck. So the Steam Deck running its max TDP 15 watts. And then the Lenovo Legion Go, he's run it at the TDP options that it gives, which is 10 watts, 15 watts, 25 watts, and 33 watts. It's kind of like the boost mode. This is with the Z2 Go edition, which again is the lower end edition. Cyberpunk running at 15 watts on the Steam Deck as the baseline, got 38. At 15 watts on the Lenovo Legion Go S, it was getting 46 FPS. At 10 watts, it was getting the same 38 FPS. And then we go all the way up to 33 watts, and it was hitting 64 frames per second. Doom Eternal on the Steam Deck, 49 frames per second. We know that game runs great. Again, on the Lenovo Legion Go S, that's the exact same figure it gets at 10 watts. And then it goes all the way up to 75 watts on the highest TDP at 75 frames per second at the highest TDP of 33 watts. The Steam Deck runs Spider-Man 2 at 23 frames per second at 15 watts. Again, it's 23 frames per second at 10 watts on the Lenovo Legion Go S with the Z2 Go chip, going all the way up to 42 frames per second at the 33 watt TDP.
Is it just more efficient then, the fact that it can, at 10 watts get the same performance as the Steam Deck?
It seems that way. So it seems like this probably is the next generation chip that we've been talking about. We saw the Z2, we saw the Z2 Extreme, which came to the MSI A8. I think if that device had something like SteamOS on it, we'd see even better performance out of it. I think it's kind of time for a revision to the Steam Deck at this point, because for me, like if I can run the exact same game at less TDP and eke out a little bit more battery, and kind of that's what I want to do.
And that's the Steam Deck have an OLED screen. You'd probably be able to eke out just that little bit more as well. Because as far as I know, this has an LCD screen. Is that right?
Yes, it does have an LCD screen. I think it's a VRR display, 120 hertz panel, so it's pretty much a similar panel to what's in the ROG Ally X.
And what frame rate are we running? What resolution are we running at here? Because the Steam Deck is 800p, and this is what, a 1080p display?
So I believe, yes, it's a 1080p display.
So I didn't watch the video. Sorry, I should have done. But what do we know what he's running it at? Is he running it at 1080p?
I think so. He's running it native, but then running at low, medium settings. I'm not sure on the frame rates. I don't think he clarified with the Steam Deck as to whether it was running at the same resolution. He may have been running those at 720.
Okay, it would make sense to get the similar performance, I guess. But even so, it's still very impressive. It's still like this is possibly I know it's probably just because of SteamOS, the first Steam Deck competitor that's made me go, actually, that's interesting.
And it's not hideous.
No, yeah,
it's a real plus, you know.
How much is it? Is the big question.
So it's a pricey device. However, people were able to get a hold of this for $349 in the US at Target this week.
Really?
If you can find one, you can get it for that price.
Wow.
It's not the only version with SteamOS in the UK that's available is £600.
Yeah, I've got it here, 549 at Curry's.
It retails for 600. 549 is to be honest, it's kind of comparable to what you'd get a Steam Deck OLED for.
Yeah, you get a terabyte SSD.
Yeah, I think it's a well-priced device.
Mm-hmm.
Unlike some of the others, like the MSI Claw A8 we spoke about last week, he's looking at coming in around $1,000, which I think is too much. But this is for the Z2 Go edition, I presume. The Z1 Extreme edition, probably a little bit more expensive. And you can expect to get slightly better frame rates out of that. At the same 33 watts, Cyberpunk runs at 72 frames per second compared to 64. And Doom Eternal will run at 84 frames per second compared to 75. I don't think the Z1 Extreme edition is the one to go for. I would go for the Z2 Go. However, I would hang fire on buying one of these. I think a newer device is just around the corner. I think the market's heating up. I think Steam's got their new page live, their SteamOS page, asking OEMs to contact them to get their OS on other devices.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's only a matter of time before we see SteamOS on a Z2 Extreme device, and I think that's the one that's really gonna be like, oh shit, okay, this is a kind of a revolution, like a kind of a generational leap that we've been waiting for, where maybe I can even play something like an Unreal Engine 5 game at 30 frames per second and be happy with the way it looks and the way it functions and the way it plays.
Yeah. SteamOS, and we've been talking about this for God knows how long, but that's the exciting thing. I've been experimenting recently with Bazite and with Nobara. I've been sort of like trying out some different Linux distros on different machines I've got, and I am excited about being able to put a version of SteamOS on a desktop or whatever PC, whether it's a different handheld, whether it's wherever it is, and I think that we've seen here that the results sort of speak for themselves, and the experience speaks for itself. Something that is as officially supported as SteamOS. I think you're probably going to run into less hiccups than you do with. I've had sort of loads of issues with Bazite and with Nobara. That could be due to anything. It could probably most likely going to be down to me. But a lot of that will be taken away with a SteamOS because it is probably...
Especially if it comes included on the device. Like, it's not like you've got to configure it or install it or do anything like that. Like, I know there is an installer and a beta version that's allegedly coming at some point in May. May's rapidly ending, Valve, and we still have not got that beta that we can install in an ROG Ally. I don't know that that's coming anymore. With something like this, Valve's worked directly with Lenovo. They've made sure it runs smoothly and works great. And looking at even the battery life compared to the Windows edition, it's just night and day. Like, they were running Hades on Windows at the same max frame rate. So like, just let it go, do whatever you can. On Windows, it was only getting an hour and 58. On Steam Deck, it got 4 hours 33.
Jeez, it's just so much more efficient.
And on the Lenovo Leigon Go S, it got 4 hours 17. So you get marginally worse battery life, but you are probably getting a way better frame rate than you would on the Steam Deck.
And I just think that Windows just has so much background processes happening all the time that it does make sense that these things are lighter and they are just playing the game and that's it. And SteamOS is very light to run.
I think it's just an all-round better experience. Even things like, if we take the UI out of the picture, it's things like being able to just press the power button and it sleeps, and then I press it again and the game's right where I left off. And on Windows, it just doesn't work that way. You can't really do that. Your game will not be there how you expected it when you go back to it. So really, I think Microsoft has a lot of catching up to do. If the rumors with their partnership with Asus are correct and true that we spoke about a couple of weeks ago, they've got to have something. I know we spoke last week about a potential like Xbox mode that they might be working on, but I think they've got to address some of these performance issues, and they've got to, because it's clear that SteamOS is just so much more efficient. It's so much lighter. There's less going on. There's none of that like shitty telematics where it's calling home all the time to tell everyone what's going on. And just for me, I wouldn't get a device that wasn't running SteamOS at this point.
The number of times I've been using, like, if not my computer, someone else's computer, and had the question, why is it so slow? Why is it taking forever? And there's just been an update running in the background that I didn't request or didn't know was happening. And it's like, you just don't get that on other devices.
No, it tells you that there's going to be an update, and you can choose whether you want to do it or not. But before we wrap up, Max, are you like tempted by something like this, or are you going to wait to see what Valve's got to offer? Do you think there's going to be maybe something you maybe excited about the Xbox collab? Like, where are you at?
I am happy to wait for whatever Steam has next. Almost said Steve then, whatever Steve has next, because I can eke more, because I can just stream games from my PC, or even just sit here and play games in that sort of quality. Well, I do love the Steam Deck. I also am taking it out less and less at the moment. And I think I would like something new, but I do want it to be a Steam Deck over this, just because I know that next year there'll be Lenovo Leigon Go, whatever the V or U or whatever the next letter is, or an S2 or something like that. I just feel like we're going to, when you go for like we spoke about before, non-Valve devices, they only make money on selling you that hardware. So they'll want to make another one next year. Whereas I feel like the Steam Deck is still going. It's just not going, as far into the AAA as it used to, and that's fine.
However, like, I do think there's something to be said about Valve supporting SteamOS.
Mhm.
We don't know. I would imagine they're going to support SteamOS on other devices a lot longer than, say, Lenovo's going to support the device itself, and they'll
Yeah.
continue to bring updates out. You probably can expect to get updates first on Steam Deck, would be my guess, and then it kind of trickles out after, in the same way that you get the latest version of Android on a Google Pixel, and then it comes to Samsung and Huawei and all the other devices a few months later.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. And again, that's probably another reason to want to be in the Steam Deck ecosystem, I guess, right? But also, I'm also coming from a position where it's the only one I've tried. Really, I've tried that isn't running Windows, and therefore I don't like it. So I guarantee
It's the
if I
only one
was
that really
to-
existed until
Yeah,
now.
exactly. Yeah, but I get, I've never played an ROG Ally running Bazzite, for example. I've never played, like, no one I know has ever taken that plunge into custom ROMs. Because everyone I know that's bought an ROG Ally has bought it mostly, one, because you could just pick up at Argos, but two, Game Pass. And for me, I think that is something I would miss.
That is a big thing. No
Yeah.
Game Pass, and obviously some of the games you can't play on SteamOS, you still can't play.
Yeah.
You're not going to be playing Destiny 2 because of BattleEye anti-cheat.
Yeah, or like, and I'm sure that a lot of people, I think people like Call of Duty. It's a big popular game, and that is just something you can only play on a Windows handheld. And that's why I think there will always be a market for Windows handhelds, because there are people who just want to play the games they want to play on an operating system start again, on an operating system they recognize. I don't know what happened there. And those people are always going to exist, and I don't blame them for wanting that. But I prefer what is on offer on the Steam Deck.
Yeah, same. Well, let us know in the comments down below. Are you excited about the Lenovo Leigon Go S? Are you going to be picking one up, or do you want to wait and see what Valve's got in offer? Maybe there's going to be something new unveiled by Jeff next week. Who knows? There might be some random new device from Valve that we'll be talking about. You'll have to tune in and find out. But let us know what you thought, either in the comments or visit flipscreen.games and drop us a line. You can join our Discord over there. If you're watching on YouTube, please remember to give this episode a like, a share it with a friend. Click the notification bell so you never miss an episode. If you're an audio listener, please take a second to leave us a 5-star review wherever you get your podcast. It really helps. I just want to thank you all so much for tuning in for an episode of the Steam Deck podcast, with a very special thank you to our Patreon producers for the final time in the month of May. They are, of course, Arnold J. Rimmer, Christopher Valenz, Gabriel Hasselmeyer, aka Sobi, Project Julian, Steve Stompy, Susan Still Likes Cats and Also Boobies, Voodoo Vic, That One Kid Nick, Ty the Dude, and Wackahula. For the crew, I've been Steve, he's been Max, wherever he is, and we will see you next week.